Hey everyone, and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. Today, we've got to talk about what's going to be a bit of a paradigm shift in how gearing works in the game, specifically in raiding, though this will have sort of effects on other branches of the game. So, in Battle for Azeroth, there is going to be no tier gear. So your 2-piece and your 4-piece tier set, these things will not exist. This all comes out through an interview with Ian Hazzikostas that was done by Game Informer, and yeah, it is one of the more interesting changes in this expansion. Now, initially I thought, whoa, what the hell, because we're at like tier 20, 21? This has been a system in the game for an extremely long time, so I was a little bit taken aback initially that this has been changed. However, the more I thought about it, yeah, it actually does make sense in some regards. But first, let's talk about the issue with some of this gearing in Legion. So, in Legion, we've had quite a lot of gear that's got very powerful effects. First of all, we've got super powerful trinkets. Second, we've got our artifact weapon. Third, we then have our 2-piece and our 4-piece from the current tier. Now, for a lot of classes, a lot of players have found that what they need to do is wear their 4-piece from maybe the current tier and their 2-piece from the previous tier, because of course with Titan Forging you can still get that previous tier gear up to quite a high item level. So this means that already you've got 6 of your gear slots locked in with really no customization, and this has another problem where those tier sets will often dictate some of your talents, which furthermore means you've got less customization. Now you then have to add on top of this fact that of course you have 2 legendaries, which means 2 more slots are going to be gone. And then of course I guess there'll be your 3rd legendary that comes with the end of Taurus, I believe, which will mean that actually a lot of your gear will be locked in. You will not have that much customization. Now, as much as the customization element there is one issue, another problem is it's kind of hard to get on the ladder when you've got so many prerequisites that give you quite a lot of power. Now, Blizzard have decided, you know what, we're going to throw legendaries in the bin. They've also added Azerite gear, and Azerite gear, importantly, does not Titan Forge. And now they've announced that another thing they're throwing in the bin is traditional tier sets. Now, one of the initial concerns was, well, what about art? Like, what about getting unique art? What they've said is they want to be doing more gear and more customization that is themed around the raid that you're currently doing. I think that could work quite well. One thing we do see with current tier art is when the class fantasy sort of lines up quite well with the art style of the raid, it looks great. But most of the time, half of a tier is kind of duds anyway, so if this means that they're doing, I suppose, more targeted and specialized gear art that sort of looks that is sort of more inherently like inspired and creative rather than, oh, we are mandated to do this one set for this one raid that looks like this for a class. Maybe that could be a good thing. Once again, though, we will have to wait and see. I think what we actually have a firmer grasp of here is the effects that this could have when it comes to your overall gearing and your character customization. So their thought with removing the legendaries, removing your tier sets and all of that is that this customization, this complexity is being added back into the game through the Azerite system. But the difference with Azerite is really in many different regards. Unlike legendaries, you get Azerite from a boss. A boss will have a bit of Azerite gear on its loot table. You can go and pick the damn thing up. There's no randomness being involved in that. So that's something that I think people are definitely quite excited for. Furthermore, the Azerite gear does not Titan Forge, so if you are doing a mythic raid and you get a bit of Azerite gear that's got good traits, of course the traits as well are not randomized, they are fixed, so you would know that, say, this boss drops my best in slot Azerite helm, then that literally is your best in slot. There's no more trying to get a perfect Titan Forge or anything like that. No, the Azerite stuff is pretty much the best. So their thought is then that with your character having 3 bits of Azerite gear, based on the power of your Heart of Azeroth artifact tier necklace anyway, you should have enough customization to actually replace all of these elements. And I suppose the benefit here is that it is probably in a more fluid format in that you can actually customize more, whereas it's kind of hard to do a lot of customization in Legion because getting that gear is sort of quite random, and getting tier sets, again, in Legion, you got to get into the raid, or at least, I suppose, get lucky in LFR, but in Battle for Azeroth, if you're, say, doing a mythic Plus dungeon and you get some Azerite stuff, maybe that Azerite stuff is not going to be as good as the best one, the best itemized one that comes from a raid boss, but it's getting you sort of up onto that power level. Now, a lot of people were a little bit concerned about the sort of what this means for raids. Does this knock raids down in the sort of level of reward? Does it de-incentivize raids? I think in some ways yes, in some ways no. Because Azerite gear will come from everywhere, it does mean that doing Mythic Plus is a more complete gearing solution for your character. Now, I think that makes a lot of sense in a post-Legion world where Mythic Plus is a very large part of the game. But because of Titan Forging not being applied to Azerite gear, it does mean that while you can get Azerite gear from everywhere, the best Azerite gear will come from Mythic raids. If it's anything like it is now, where, as an example, if you are doing a Mythic Plus dungeon, the base item level cap is below that of of a Mythic raid, so that should then mean that, yeah, Mythic raid absolutely is your best source of that gear. So I think that should keep the most high-end raiders happy and not really affect the rest of us that much at all. Now, overall, my thoughts on this are actually extremely positive, because what I find interesting is that gameplay customization. Now, it is definitely going to be the case that you'll have 3 bits of Azerite gear, there will be a mathematical best way to kit them all out, and that will dictate your talents and all of that stuff. Or, that's what it's going to be like for the high-end raiding crew anyway. But for everyone else, this system does mean there's a bit more customization. So if there's a playstyle that you find more fun or comfortable, and sure, you lose 3% DPS, well, for a lot of people that's fine. It's probably not fine in a raiding situation where that 3% probably matters, but it gives you more customization for the rest of the gameplay of World of Warcraft, which I think is a pretty damn good thing. Overall, I'm really struggling to see a reason why it's not a good thing that they're replacing the tier sets. I suppose one slight worry is, like, how much of that customization will they work back in to the Azerite stuff. In terms of classes, a lot of classes end up sort of being made by a few of their tier bonuses. Will the Azerite gear have stuff of that effect? Currently, I'm assuming it will, because it's intended to be the replacement for the existing tier set system. So overall, I think this is quite good. When you're gearing up, I think this will mean that things are more flexible. You won't be completely gimped because you don't have your 2-piece or your 4-piece. No, you won't have the highest item level bit of Azerite gear, but you will have something that fills that niche a good bit earlier on. I think that's pretty good for gearing. You should feel less pigeonholed, and importantly, you should have less slots locked down. One thing I alluded to in the start of this video is that for a lot of people it felt kind of sucky when, okay, you've got 2 legendaries, you've got 6 bits of tier gear because you're wearing a 4-piece and a 2-piece, and then you've got, say, your best in slot trinket, or 1 or 2 of those things, and you can't really, well, those slots are just locked in for an entire raid tier that lasts maybe 6 months. For a lot of people, that's not great. Well, when we look at the Azerite gearing situation, currently the way it works is that your helm, your shoulders, and your chest are Azerite. That means, yes, those 3 slots, they're just locked in, they're Azerite gear, that's what they are. Everything else is pretty much unaffected. Overall, that means that you should have less slots that are locked down by a sort of, an arbitrary big system like the legendaries, and unlike the legendaries, there is a lot more customization within each bit of Heart of Azeroth gear, which should allow you to tailor it to the talents you like, your playstyle, maybe even the fight that you're going into, all of that stuff. So my take on this actually is, in spite of the fact that I initially thought, oh, that's a bit strange, no, my thoughts right now are super positive. I think this could be a fantastic change. I just hope that the Heart of Azerite, or the Heart of Azeroth / Azerite gear has enough cool customization in it. I hope they manage to make those effects properly exciting, and I do hope that they are able to do more interesting visual stuff with the game. I'm okay with, losing the original, or the tier set system that we know of, if it means that that same amount of new art is being put into the classes, just in a different place. So I definitely don't want to see a big drop in art, and it seemed to be that some of this Azerite gear does have its own art as well. One of the things with the Legion Legendaries is they didn't want to give them unique art because the Legendaries had a completely random drop chance. Well, if this Azerite gear is coming from fixed sources, then the Azerite gear can look absolutely amazing, and, you know, be properly something that looks sort of rare and interesting because of, well, you know, its place in the Azerite system. So that's pretty much my thoughts on this new Battle for Azeroth development. I'm dead keen to hear what you've got to say down in the comments, especially if you are a raider. You know, I think I cover the other end of the game pretty decently, but because of doing my game development work and my raid guild kind of falling apart, yeah, my Legion raiding experience is honestly trash, so I think I need more opinions there. Anyway, thank you very much for watching this video, and I'll see you next time.